I was working at a children's home in India in a small town called Kasinga in Odisha. And it was full of about 40 kids, I would say. And they were all kids who had been rescued from either abusive home situations or being sex workers or just being abandoned and orphaned, and the local orphanages were unable to keep them. So these kids we were there to work with and try and help them learn about women's health and just improving their confidence. And so all of that to say, these kids were amazing because they've been through so much. And so we were there wanting to give them a good experience and wanting to help them. What we didn't realize was that they would absolutely help us way more, because one day it was monsoon season and we were outside and they had a short break from school and they had been studying really, really hard. And so they wanted to go outside and play. And we said, okay, great. So we went outside and all of a sudden the thunder cracked and the lightning struck. Well, I don't know if it was lightning or not, but the thunder cracked and it started pouring. And so I'm thinking, oh no, the kids are getting wet. They're going to be so upset and so sad because it's raining. And so I started to say, like,
welcome to A Life of Freedom podcast, your source of inspiration and information on how and why you should choose to pursue your own happiness, pursue your passion, and design a life that fulfills you and makes it your own. And now here's your host, Ayash LKZ.
This is episode 4 of season 1. Today we are talking with journalist, storyteller, and travel blogger and Marie Haggerty. Let's get to the show.
So first, can you give me your backstory?
Yeah, so backstory for me is I grew up in a really small town and I always dreamed of traveling, but that was not something that was imminently possible for anybody around the neighborhood where I lived. When I was young, I was invited to go to Japan for the first time for a piano competition. And it was so life-changing to just see another place and another culture. And so when I got back home to my really small town, I wanted to continue to have those experiences. And so I started raising money. I started doing odd jobs, anything I could to be able to go and travel. And so I started doing that all through middle school, high school, college. And then in college, I was studying journalism, and journalism is a space where you can pursue all types of stories. And so I chose to pursue stories that were largely abroad so that I could bring the stories of other people from other places who looked different than me, who spoke different languages than me, who had different experiences, bring those stories back home to the United States and help people connect a little bit more with the world around them. So that was that background. And then I started working in the corporate world as a journalist. And I didn't have any opportunity to travel when I was working that job because it was really demanding. But I recently, in the last several months, moved away from that corporate job and am now running my blog and traveling full time. So I get to pursue that kind of dream of seeing the world all the time.
Okay. What was your inspiration to be travel and?
It was really one time when I was in 6th grade, I was at church and I was telling my friends there about the trip that I was going on to Japan. And they said, oh, well, aren't you so scared because they eat fish there? They eat sushi and it's raw and you're going to get sick and you might die. and it's going to be terrible. And I was really scared because I'm like, oh my gosh, these crazy people, they eat raw fish. What am I going to do? And then I went to Japan and tried the raw fish, and it is delicious and it doesn't make you die. And when I got back, I said to my friends, hey guys, like, you got to try this. This is different and that's okay. And it's not like what you're used to, but that's good. And it was that experience and a lot of experiences like that that really inspired me to keep going and keep pushing to see different places and then share those stories with the people around me, because we're all not that different at the end of the day.
Okay. What are the reasons that you left your corporate job, and like what's the closest reasons that led you to act on it?
The biggest thing for me, well, there were a lot of reasons. One that is connected to travel is the expectation in the United States, especially for workers, is that you get 2 weeks of vacation for the year and you grind away and work for the rest of that time. In my particular job, I had less than 2 weeks because our company was sold and policies changed, and they evidently did not value giving time off to recharge and rest to their employees. And so for me, that meant taking a total of 5 days off for it was about a year and a half that I only took 5 total days. So it was experiences like that where I was not doing my best work because I was so burnt out, and grinding constantly was wearing me down. So that was part of it, sort of the corporate structure in the United States. And then the other big thing is I saw a lot of people being mistreated by some management and people in positions of authority. And it was really frustrating to see my colleagues and my coworkers not be valued and not be treated with respect like they deserve. And so I thought to myself, well, I don't really want to work and put in effort for a company that's not valuing their people and not treating them with respect. And so I thought, well, if I can start something myself, then I can be the boss and choose how I treat people and be sure to treat them with respect and honor like they deserve. So it was those two things and a bunch of others.
Okay. What would you say that is your greatest accomplishment so far?
In general, or with travel, or what?
With both.
Both. Okay. Well, I think a huge accomplishment with travel and starting my own business, I'll just roll this into one if that works to make it simpler. A huge accomplishment was getting the courage to go out on my own and start a business on my own, because there's no rule book and there's no playbook for doing that. And coupled with that, getting the courage to do something scary by myself, and then getting partnerships and collaborations with the top luxury brands in the world for travel and accommodation was pretty huge. So within just a couple of months of working this business, I had reached my ultimate goal. And my ultimate goal was to get a partnership with the top luxury brand in, I would consider, in the world. And I got to work with them just about 2 months in. And so now I'm sort of finding new goals and setting new goals, since a lot of the ones that I originally thought were the things to shoot for, I've already been able to achieve.
So can you tell what kind of goals do you have for the future?
Yeah, so that's developing. One of the big goals I have is to develop a team. I mentioned that one of the things that drew me away from my original corporate job was that the employees and the people that worked so hard every day, I saw them not treated with respect and regard. And I am really, really passionate about creating a workspace where people are not treated that way. And so my goal in starting something myself is to be able to hire people who are excellent and do a good job and treat them really, really well and pay them really, really well. And be sure that I don't see that same mistreatment happen. So that's really the biggest goal. Is this business is not about just me. It's about building a team. And if I can be an excellent resource for them to help them be their best, that's probably the biggest goal that I have.
Okay. What would you say that would be your biggest weakness and strength, and how would be your life without it?
Okay. Let's see. I think my biggest strength is empathy. I really feel deeply for other people, even if they're very different from me. I took a personality test actually that was like many hours long. And at the end of that test, it was supposed to give like 5 or 6 key traits about who you are as a person. And the number one by far trait that it came up with was empathy for me. And I, growing up, saw that as a bit of a weakness because I thought, I'm just too emotional and I just am too worried about, feelings. But I think that is a great strength to be able to encourage people in that. And my biggest weakness is I am a people pleaser. And I do not like confrontation. So if somebody is upset, I want them to be taken care of immediately. I want them to be okay. And if they're not okay, I am not okay. So that I need to work on because I can't make everybody have the best day of their life every single day. And if I'm not doing that, I have a hard time. But I need to work on it.
Okay, so your biggest strength and weakness is like what have led you to here. But what if you didn't have those qualities? How would your life would be?
I don't really know because they're just who I am. So I'm sure if I had different, a different personality, I would have gone in a different path. But I think I don't really know anything different because that's just me.
Did you went back to Japan, and how was your second trip going there?
Yeah, the second trip was amazing because the first time I visited Japan, it changed my young life and opened my eyes to see that the world is big and amazing. And the second time going back confirmed that. It really made it clear that yes, the world is big and amazing. And it wasn't just being a little kid that made me think that. On top of the fact that Japan is just an awesome country. The food is amazing, gyoza and sushi and ramen and mochi and everything. I love the people are so respectful and kind. And so going back, it was kind of coming full circle.
How does traveling make you feel?
It makes me feel alive. Traveling makes me feel the most alive out of anything else that I have ever done or tried. Going to a totally new place and being around totally new people is an experience like you can't really create with anything else.
Okay. What would be your most memorable travel experience?
Oh man, my most memorable was actually in India. Well, there were a few actually. Let's see which one will we pick?
A
children's one of the ones called Kasinga. It was about perspective. It was full about I think travel kids, I would say, and they were all kids who had been rescued from either abusive home situations or being sex workers or just being abandoned and orphaned, and the local orphanages were unable to keep them. So these kids we were there to work with and try and help them learn about women's health and just improving their confidence. And so all of that to say, these kids were amazing because they've been through so much. And so we were there wanting to give them a good experience and wanting to help them. What we didn't realize was that they would absolutely help us way more, because one day it was monsoon season and we were outside and they had a short break from school and they had been studying really, really hard. And so they wanted to go outside and play. And we said, okay, great. So we went outside and all of a sudden the thunder cracked and the lightning struck. Well, I don't know if it was lightning or not, but the thunder cracked and it started pouring. And so I'm thinking, oh no, the kids are getting wet. They're going to be so upset and so sad because it's raining. And so I started to say, like, come on, guys, let's run back inside. And they were like, sister, no, we dance in the rain. And so we ended up having a big dance party in the middle of this monsoon. And they were so excited. And I had the best time ever. And everybody, it ended up being much better than just playing in the heat outside. So that's memorable to me because it's all about how when you travel, the people around you teach you way more than you expect going in. I expected to go in and to help these kids and to teach them. And ultimately, my perspective needed to be changed. Just because it's raining doesn't mean that your whole afternoon is ruined. No, it means that you dance in the rain and you make a good time of it.
You can share another story.
Oh, another story? Okay. Another memorable experience was in Panama. I'll switch countries.
Okay.
So I was in Panama. We're in the Bocas del Toro area, which is, well, it doesn't matter. I was in Panama in the Bocas del Toro area, and I was reporting on the indigenous people in that area and their rights, because there's a bit of a chasm between the Panamanian nationals and the indigenous people because of land rights and a whole host of different things. So I was trying to work on a story to get some answers about what the rights of the indigenous people should be and what the government was doing to honor and protect them. So I'm running around the island trying to interview people and trying to get some answers. And then I got a tip that the president of Panama at the time, Juan Carlos Varela, was in Panama. It was in the area, was in these small islands where I was. And I said, oh my gosh, I have to interview this guy. Where is he? And I went down to the main part of this village and ran into the Secret Service. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's definitely here if the Secret Service is here. And they had like a boat brigade of officials that they were protecting. And so I went over to the officials and I was like, hey, is the president here? I need to talk to him. I'm a journalist. And they were like, well, yes, but no, you have to get out of here. Like, he's really busy. He's here for a secret meeting, essentially. And I was like, a secret meeting? What are you talking about? Like, what? Like, I need to talk to him. So they were like, get out of our face, go away. We don't, you're a peasant, so we're not talking to you. And so I'm like, okay, no, I have to figure out where this guy is. So I start talking to some of the locals who were standing around about what they had heard about his schedule. And I heard from somebody that he was going to be on another super remote island in a few hours to speak at a school there. And I was like, okay, let's see how I can get there. And they were like, yeah, but you can't get there because nobody except for like the native people live there. And there aren't boats that go there. Like, you can't get there. And I was like, oh no, I have to try and get there. And they were like, well, we don't even know if he'll be there for sure. And I was like, whatever, we're going. So I found a guy who had a boat, and I chartered the boat to get out to this random island and set foot on the island. And I didn't know if he would actually be there or not, but there were some people standing by. And when they saw our boat arrive, they started scurrying around and like acted like they were preparing something. And so I was like, oh, that's a good sign, because they wouldn't typically be waiting for somebody, and typically they wouldn't be expecting someone. So I get out and I was like, hey guys, is the president coming? And they were like, well, we don't know. We can't say anything, but maybe. But they had their whole place like super clean and nice. I'm like, okay, come on. So then we had to wait for hours because he wasn't supposed to be there until like 3 p.m. and we were there at like 12 or something. So we hang out, we get lunch, we make friends with the people, and finally they're like, okay, so here's the deal. We heard that he's supposed to be coming, but we don't know when, and he might change his plans at the last minute. So I'm like, all right, we're hanging out, having a good time. And then finally, it was like 4:00. It was after when he was supposed to be there. This parade of boats shows up, and I'm like, oh, this has to be it. And sure enough, it's this parade of boats. And then I see the boat that the president is on, and the president is coming in to this side of the dock. And so I run over to the other side and am waiting there as soon as he gets off the boat. And I was like, hello there, President Varela. I'm Marie Haggerty from, blah, blah. I'm a journalist. I need to talk to you. And he was like, oh, like, hey, what's up? I'd be happy to talk, but I'm going to this school. I am having a secret meeting with all of the indigenous leaders from the entire country of Panama that has been years in the works later tonight, if you want to come to that. And I was like, are you serious? Yes. Yes, of course. I'll be there. Sounds good. Because that was what my story was originally on, was indigenous rights. So we go to the school and, whatever. And then later that night, it's this, nice hotel. We walk in and security's like, you can't be here. Like, get out, get out, get out. And I was like, no, the president said I could come. And so we end up going into this meeting, and it's an indigenous leader from every single people group in Panama assembled together. It had been years in the making, and they had a long, frank conversation about indigenous rights moving forward. So I got an exclusive story and met the president and some other cool kids and had some good fish. And anyway, so yeah, it's the other story.
Yeah, that's true. When reading your about page, so you mentioned little things that bring you joy. What would be the difference between like little things and like great accomplishments, and how would that make you feel?
Oh, interesting. So you're saying what's the difference between like, getting flowers or like a coffee and accomplishing like a big, getting a
like
job or something.
With the interview and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, like the president. Okay. Yeah. Well, I think the little things that bring you joy along the way are really, really important to prioritize. For example, when we were doing the Panamanian president interview thing, I mentioned that we had to wait for hours. Well, the big picture of this was that I needed to get a story. But what I wanted to do was to have some lunch at the local restaurant, which wasn't really a restaurant. It was just this like shack, and some guys would go out and like catch a fish and then cook it for you. So that's what I wanted to do because I really love food, and that brings me joy. And so I said, well, we could stand around and wait and be stressed out, or we could just have lunch and enjoy ourselves. And so that's what we did. We had lunch and we enjoyed ourselves. And I think that making choices for the little things along the way that bring you joy are really important to accomplish the big things. Because if you're miserable and just an unhappy person, it doesn't really matter what you accomplish because you're still going to be miserable. So I think accomplishing big things is important because it gives you a sense of purpose. and a sense of like, okay, I'm really doing something here. But you need the little things too.
When you talk about food, can you name what kind of favorite restaurants in each country?
My favorite dish of all time, anywhere, is the veal ravioli at the Four Seasons Orlando Resort. It has a truffle sauce and it is just divine in every way. It combines all the things that I love about food: truffles, pasta, and it's just amazing.
Can you name like some countries you have traveled to and what was your favorite dish there?
Yeah, I probably won't be able to get all of them, but yeah, I can do some of them. UAE, Thailand, India, Japan, Hong Kong, China. I don't know if that counts. Let's see, Panama, Canada, Mexico, England, Germany, France, Spain, Andorra. Off the top of my head, there's some. And as far as a favorite, man, they're all they're just really, really different. So it's hard to say. Actually, one that I didn't mention might be my favorite, Croatia. Croatia is just beautiful geographically. Like, they have a lot of amazing national parks and you can hike. They're also right on the coastline. So Croatia, for people who don't know, is right by Italy, and it's in the Mediterranean. And so you get that same coastal feel and the same amazing food that you do in the Mediterranean countries. And Croatia is just a little bit more under the radar. It's not quite as well known, but it's just around the corner from Venice. And so the food is amazing. The people are kind. It's a little bit less touristy, but a really beautiful country.
Okay. What would be like a perfect day for you?
A perfect day? Oh, that's a nice question. Well, it depends because I'm very much an extroverted person. So for me, a perfect day I would choose different things depending on who I was with. But let's say, for example, I was with some of my best friends. So let's say it was 3 of my best friends, so a group of 4 girls. I would say a perfect day would be waking up in a king bed with lots of comfy pillows at a beautiful resort on the beach, and then going to a wonderful brunch, and then going out for like a surfing lesson or a fishing lesson or something to like learn something, but also be out and active in nature. And then let's say also that we're set in Hawaii, because Hawaii is just a beautiful place and you can do everything there. So we're waking up in Hawaii, having breakfast, going surfing, and then we come back and maybe relax on the beach a little bit and have lunch on the beach. And then we go out hiking on like a mountain waterfall hike in the afternoon. And then we come back and get dressed up and all fancy and go to a really fancy dinner and drink champagne, and then go out and watch fireworks over the beach with some dessert that night.
So given a choice of like going to the mountains or the beach, what would you choose?
It depends what season it is. But overall, well, right now I would choose the mountains because in North Carolina right now it is fall and the leaves on the trees are turning different colors: yellow, red, orange, and it's very pretty.
Okay. On your about, you talk about doing running and biking and all the stuff. How was your experience with that? Do you do it competitively or you just do that for leisure?
Yeah, I ran my first full marathon, 26.2 miles this year, earlier in January at Disney World. And that was really hard. It hurt a lot, but it was good to try that. I think that's another accomplishment. You asked about goals and accomplishments, and that was something that had really scared me for a long time, running a full marathon. because I'd run a few half marathons before, which is 13 miles, but I was really, really scared to try for the full length. And then I finally said, you know what? I'm not going to be scared anymore. I'm just going to do it. And so I trained and trained and trained and trained about 400 miles and then finally ran the race. And it was a great sense of accomplishment, very painful, but worth it. And I did it in a costume.
What was the costume?
It was Elsa from Frozen.
Okay, great. What's your experience with the Spartan races?
With the Spartan races, I love Spartan races, and I hope that they're able to come back soon. Spartan races are basically obstacle course races where you are either, jumping over fire or crawling under barbed wire or scaling a fence or something like that. It's very dirty. It's very hard. And I really love physical challenges like that where you're just pushed in a unique way. So you either run a distance of 3 to 5 miles or 6 to 8 miles or 11 to 13 miles, depending on the length of your race. And then throughout that race length, there are obstacles for you to overcome. So I've done 2 or 3 Spartan races, and I really think they're awesome. The last one I did was with my brother, and he is much stronger than I am. So he showed me up, but that was okay.
Okay. How would you say that COVID-19 would have affected your lifestyle?
So I actually got COVID in June, and it was not bad for me at all. I was really fortunate to have a very, very easy experience. I had 1 or 2 days of feeling quite bad, and then it was really, really pretty easy. So I would say having it, it was not too bad. I think the biggest impact I've seen is not on my life as much as it is on all of the businesses that I really love. So, for example, there is a French restaurant right beside my house that is a beautiful, beautiful restaurant. I love going there because it's so pretty inside and the food is pretty good. And it was a really great restaurant. And they just announced that they are closing down completely because of COVID. And I think that's a tragedy because it was a great business, loved in the community, and now they're just killed. So that makes me really sad. And that's just one example of so many in my life that I've seen impacted. Other than that, other than having things be shut down and businesses, losing their people and losing their ability to work, I would say that's been the biggest impact I've seen.
What would be your advice to someone who wants to do something but's holding it off?
I would say it depends on the situation. I'm not going to say just go do it, because if you don't have any savings or any ability, don't go do it. That's going to be bad. If you really want to be a, trapeze artist, but you can't do the split, you should not quit your job and try to go join the circus. That is going to turn out badly for you. So whatever your goal is that you want to do, you should figure out exactly what it is, and it needs to be specific. And then say, okay, what do I have to do to get there? So for example, if you want to travel full time, say, okay, why do I want to travel full time? Is it because I think it's cool to post pictures on Instagram? Is it because I have had a passion my entire life for seeing the world and sharing stories of other people in other places? Is it some other reason? Figure out what that reason is, because that's going to drive you. And then figure out a plan. And if that plan is doable but tough, if it's going to take a lot of work, but you can see a clear path to do it, then I say go for it. Definitely. If that path looks like it might not be possible for a couple of years, maybe you need to keep working and saving for a couple of years, and then you can do it, I say do it on the side. Because with the example of Instagram, if you really love traveling so much and photography, you can do that on the side. That's what I did for a couple of years before I left my job. Was I just did on the side because I love to do that, and I started the page because I just wanted to, not because it was going to be a job. So that would be my nice.
Okay, before we go to the final question, you can share like all your social media and how could like our listeners would find you.
Oh, sure. So check me out on the gram at AM Around the World. AM like the morning, like Anne Marie, and then Around the World, because that's where we're going. I also have a handle on Facebook, and I also have a website that is annemariehaggerty.com/blog, where you can find full write-ups and full details of every trip and how you can plan your own, where to stay, what to do, what was good, what was overrated. And I also have a link to that in the blog on my Instagram page.
Okay. So the final question is, how would you like to be remembered 50 years from now?
Oh, that's such a good question. Oh, that's so sweet. I would like to be remembered as somebody who genuinely loved the people around her and was generous in giving to them as much as she could. Somebody who made other people feel good about themselves when they were around, and somebody who just made your life better. But that's a good question. I'm going to have to think about that more.
Okay. Thank you for joining with me for this podcast. So it's been a great experience. I think your story is like really inspirational for like everyone.
So, thank you. All right. Well, I will let you go, but thank you so much. I appreciate it. It was nice to talk to you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you for listening to our conversation. Please leave a review or subscribe from wherever you listen to our podcast. See you next time.